This is the magicwordpodcast.com.
Hello, this is Scott Wells for the magicwordpodcast.com. Well, what a month the November 2021 has been for me. I have celebrated my birthday all month long, starting at the 1st of November right up until the end, and it's been fantastic, and I want to thank many of you listeners who have sent me well wishes throughout the month, and actually I only had one actual day that was my birthday, although throughout the month there were so many different things that I had done to help celebrate that, and had different people who had sent me gifts or given me things, and it was wonderful, starting off at the beginning of the month in which I was featured on the cover of the MUM magazine. That's the Journal for the Society of American Magicians, and I had an 8-page article that was featured there in this November 2021 issue, and I want to thank Alan Howard, who is the editor, for allowing that to go through and to put that in the magazine. I also want to especially thank Tom Vorjahan, who was the author of that article. It was phenomenal. He has won some other awards for articles he had written for the Linking Ring that were some background articles featuring some other magicians, but he's been a longtime friend of mine, so thank you, Tom. I just wanted to give you a big shout out to thank you for writing that article. And that was just, and also Chris Gillette, a friend of mine who is a photographer, and he took the cover photo there. And also, as an aside, some of you might appreciate the fact that he was one of the people who had helped edit with me the Banachek's first book, The Psychological Subtleties. So his name is on the inside of that book, being credited also for helping to be an editor. Anyhow, that was great. Starting off the month then with November, and then throughout the month I was in France for much of the month and had an opportunity to visit with several people, including Dominique Duvivier and his daughter Alexandra, and also Boris Wilde and David Stone, and we're going to be having those conversations coming up in a future episode, but we've got just a whole lot really that is going to be coming up between now and then that I've already got in the can. But before we get to that, again, even right up and through Thanksgiving, I want to especially thank those of you who not only listen to this podcast, but also give your ratings on iTunes or whatever platform you use in order to listen to these podcasts by going out and giving a nice 5-star rating to this, along with a nice review. I had a very nice shout out that came from Dean Carnegie, and he is the person who has the Magic Detective podcast. Actually, it's magicdetectivepodcast.com, and he has been doing this for about 75 episodes or so, and he just happened to mention a few podcasts here recently, and he mentioned the Magic Word Podcast, so I just wanted to reciprocate and thank him very much, and would recommend also that you might consider listening to that. If you want to learn a little bit more about some magic history, he goes into deep dives into the lives of some magicians, so I know you would really enjoy going back and listening to all of his episodes there as well. And speaking of shout-outs, I would like to encourage you, if you would please just send me an audio file of a shout-out. If you would like to say Merry Christmas or Happy Hanukkah or Happy Kwanzaa or whatever, you just want to wish happy holidays to the group in general, to your family, your friends, the rest of the magicians or whatever, I'd like to encourage you to send me something. I'm going to be having a special episode next week. It will be our annual update with Murray. We'll have our Murray Christmas episode coming up, so be sure to listen to that. And along with that, if you will send me your sound files, I'd be glad to post those along with that, so this way you can wish everyone the best of the season. So again, you can send those audio files to me at scott@themagicwordpodcast.com. And if the file is a little bit too large, we can use Dropbox and just send me an email. We can figure that out. So I want to thank you guys very much for doing that. This week's episode is someone who is a friend of the Magic Word and has been a longtime friend of mine then as well. And he is someone who is what I would call the everyman magician. He is someone who has been out there doing it for a long time. His long-term goal has been to be a successful professional magician, and he has achieved that. And in this episode, my good friend Michael Costa, who is better known as Michael Trixx, has had a successful path, and he shares everything that he has done to get where he is today. And again, I wanted to feature him because we do have a lot of well-known magicians from around the world who have been on this podcast and who will be in the future then as well. Michael may not be as well known as others, but again, I like to introduce to the listeners some people who aren't as well known, so this way you make new friends as well. Plus, you can learn from some of the things that they have done and be encouraged by their successes and perhaps their mistakes along the way, and perhaps this might be a path that you might want to take by him giving you some encouragement along the way based upon his experiences then as well. So we have an enjoyable conversation here with Michael Trixx when we sat down recently at the Magi Fest when we were in Columbus, Ohio together and had an opportunity to chat together. So thank you for indulging me and allowing me to not have a podcast this past Thursday on Thanksgiving. I thought it was best to have an opportunity for you to spend time with family and friends and to maybe digest the meal of the day as well as some of the past podcasts we've had in the archives. Plus also, I was just getting back from France and trying to take a little break then myself, plus spending some time with my family then as well. So I hope that you enjoyed that. We have, again, a lot of things in the can that are coming up, but this week I want to introduce you to my friend, Mr. Michael Trixx, here on The Magic Word. Today we're with a good friend of mine and a friend of the Magic Word, someone who is one of the workers you may have seen perhaps at some magic conventions, may have seen him compete, may have seen him perform perhaps at a few places as well, but he mostly spends his time actually working out under the hot sun, but in the most beautiful place on earth in the Florida Keys area. And someone who is known as a rock and roll magician, and I've said before, you look like the lead singer for Poison, from
Yeah.
and you probably get confused for that from time to time then as well. Michael Costa is his name, but he goes by Michael Trixx with 2 X's because he is just a superstar. He needs to have 2 X's. Here he is, Michael Trixx. Hey, buddy, how are you?
What's up, Scott? How are you? I'm happy to be here. As you know, I'm a longtime fan and a friend of the Magic Word podcast, and so I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'm so glad to have you, certainly. It's always good. Of course, what this is all about is always talking with friends and people who are good conversationalists. And we have been friends for a long time and hung out and having a martini, which is right now, by the way. Cheers to you. Thanks
right. Cheers.
For the vodka.
Yes.
To you. Have a little sip.
Of course.
Mm.
All right.
That's some good stuff. So, I first of all was going to ask about your sleeve tattoos. Do they particularly mean something, or have you got like?
Most of them are stuff that I've drawn that I've wanted, and I started getting tattoos early in life. People say they regret them later. I don't really regret any of them. A lot of them, they have meaning to me from my past. Mm-hmm. We'll get into when I was a bass player in rock bands and stuff, and like I said, it's mostly my own artwork that I've had them trace and put on me.
Oh, really? Okay.
So
it's not something you just picked from a book and said, I
don't have, I didn't go in and get the panther sliding down your arm or,
right.
The anchor like a mom. Well, like everybody does. It's mostly, So, each one kind of has a story. I think for everybody like that, tattoos have stories for you.
I often wonder about that when I see people. For an example, I know Paul Kozak is new tattoo. Seems like he's always adding all the time, and they are very spiritual for him and mean a lot.
Especially since the Hawaii thing, he's become totally into that with the look and the lifestyle of it and everything.
Yeah.
When he came out for, I was performing at the IBM in Grand Rapids, and he was also on the bill, and he came out, and I got to spend some time with him, and he's always been great, just with everything, as far as getting a hold of him, asking him stuff, and supportive. But he was like, I don't think I'll ever leave the island again. He hadn't been off in so long, and, the travel and just, being out, and he's like, he just wanted to be home. He's comfortable where he's at.
Yes.
And I'm dying to go visit him there.
Me too. He's doing his own thing and does his own paintings and got his own
the artwork's amazing. You see in his cozy show and art gallery there. It's amazing.
Yep, I'm anxious to go and see that as well. But as far as your show goes, you've been at Annabelle's? No, not what's the name of the place?
That's the Hawaii Annabelle's. A place called the Lorelei.
Okay.
In the Florida Keys. Most people I talk to, and I say the Florida Keys, everybody immediately goes to Key West in their mind, and I get that. A lot of people don't know about the Keys. I never really did till I ended up there. Mm-hmm. But the Keys is all the way at the bottom of Florida, and it's the little strip of islands that come off the south of Florida, and it's like 150 miles or 130 miles and about more than that many keys. Key West is one of them, but everyone thinks the Keys is Key West. Key West is all the way at the end of it, so that's the end of the world. It's like the closest to Cuba. It's the southernmost point of the United States.
Yeah.
And so Key West is mile marker 0. Everything goes by mile markers because it's one road in the Keys with the Gulf of Mexico on one side, the Atlantic Ocean on the other, and just bridges connecting all these islands together. Mm-hmm. And so being about 130 miles long, I live at mile marker 90.
Okay.
So, and Lorelei, where I've been performing 3 nights a week for 22 years, is at mile marker 82. So it's only 82 miles from Key West, but the speed limit all the way through this 45. So it's like a 2-hour ride to get there.
Driving through town everywhere you.
Yeah, but the ride's just amazing. Anyway, like you said, it's paradise, water on both sides.
Right.
And you get to
sunsets are beautiful.
It is, and that's what my show's built around down there, the Sunset Magic Show, and we'll get more into that too. But just again, the ride to Key West is the famous 7 Mile Bridge, which has been in movies, True Lies with Arnold Schwarzenegger. You can, when you drive over it, you see where the bridge was blown up, where the helicopter flew under at the end of that movie, and it's.
They repaired the bridge since then.
No, it's the old bridge. It used to be the train bridge
so
before there was a road. So when you're driving over the 7 Mile Road Bridge, you can look over and see the broken part of the old train bridge.
So that wasn't CGI. That really did.
Yeah, they blew it up for the movie. Yeah, the helicopter's flying under this bridge, and they blew up the one by there. Yeah.
I'm going to go back and watch that again, and just for that scene.
It's at the end. So if you want to skip through to see it, but I've done it too. So obviously, since I found out about that in the Keys years ago. But yeah.
Yeah. When did you change your name actually to Trixx? Was that whenever you started doing magic then? Actually?
It was totally a magic thing. Back when I was playing in bands, my name's Michael Stephen Costa, and I kind of just went Michael Stevens with that. But when I got into magic,
later in life, I guess.
Way later in life, and I'll tell that story after this. But the name Michael Trixx with the 2 X's came from my idol in rock and roll, who was Nikki Sixx from Motley Crue. And so Nikki Sixx, Sixx, Nikki Sixx, Michael Trixx. I kind of took it from that. He's just been my idol pretty much since junior high or the early '80s when they first started out. And
did you ever get to meet him?
I did, and I'll tell you a great story about that before we even get into the magic stuff. I graduated high school in 1988. And I wrote in my high school yearbook for my ambition in life to meet and party with Motley Crue and make it big in the world of rock and roll. I was a bass player, So that's in the yearbook from 1988. Years later, I never saw a magic trick till I was 25 years old. Mm-hmm. So
you know who it was that you saw?
Yes, I do. It was Christmas time, 1994 or 5. I always say 95 in my show, but I have a friend back home on Nantucket where I did his wedding in 95, just walking around stuff. So it must have been Christmas time in 94, but my pattern in the show, it's 95 for me. So Christmas time, 1994, I guess, Sarasota, Florida. I had moved out there looking for a band at the time. I was just a bass player in rock bands, and I was working at an Outback Steakhouse. I was a salad maker there, spinning salads for Outback Steakhouse, and I was going out at night to these open jam things to look for a band. And I was at an open jam one night. I got off stage with these guys, and this guy came up to me, showed me, just walked up to me, and said, "Hey man, check this out." Showed me he had no sleeves on, nothing else in his hands. This guy borrowed my lit burning cigarette at the time. I no longer smoke, but at the time I did. He took this lit cigarette of mine, shoved it down into his closed fist, squeezed a bunch of smoke out of it, pushed it all the way down into his hand. And when that guy opened his hand, there was no cigarette, no burn, no ash, no filter, nothing. Of course, it was gone.
Yeah.
This is the very first magic trick I'd ever seen in my whole life at 25 years old. Mm-hmm. I mean, I never saw it as a kid, birthday party magician. I just never saw a real magic trick my whole life.
A card trick or balloon animals or
nothing. Like it just never caught. The Copperfield on TV. It just wasn't in my life. I just never came across like a real man. I mean, I had some cool uncles, but none of them ever pulled a quarter out of my ear. Nothing. So this guy made the cigarette disappear. Nothing, and it just blew me away. And like I said, I smoked at the time, and I was like, dude, look. I don't want to be a fucking magician. I'm a bass player. I'm going to be rock. I smoke a lot. I got to learn this trick. And I bugged this kid all night long. And eventually he gave in. And he charged me $40 and taught me the trick. The TT, it's all magicians here. So thumb to $40. And For me, to this day, it was the best $40 I ever spent in my life because, especially at that time, there was other things I could have spent $40 on.
Change your life.
And it did. And I actually became friends with that guy, and he brought me to a magic shop the next day. We went to lunch, and he brought me to a magic shop in Bradenton, Florida, called Ed's Magic Shop. And I fell in love with magic that day. I was in awe about just everything that was going on in that magic shop. And I fell in love with magic. And 2 weeks later, I gave up playing music that quick. I just felt this calling to the magic thing and said, I'm done with music. I eventually started selling my equipment, my bass guitar, my amplifier, my PA. I ended up selling everything and buying books and videos on magic as I went along to teach myself this art. And I became friends with the owner of that magic shop, Ed Kaczmarek, who recently passed away. But he kind of took me under his wing, and I would just go in there and watch videos all day with him. And he ended up getting me a job as the mascot for the Pittsburgh Pirates in spring training down there. I was the pirate parrot.
You mean like in a costume?
I was the big pirate parrot running around doing the games down there.
Wow.
And so I would go to the magic shop all day, and then I would go to work at the Outback Steakhouse, and I would practice these tricks I'm learning on the busboys and the dishwashers and this and that. And it's a very busy Outback Steakhouse, Sarasota, Florida, right on US 1 there, Tamiami Trail. And there was like a 2-hour wait one day out there. And the GM came in, I was making salads, and he's like, drop what you're doing, get out there on the deck, do those tricks with people, don't let them leave.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right. And this was officially my first day of performing magic. I went out there, and I started doing tricks for people on the deck. And I was still on the clock, making whatever it was at the time, $4.25 an hour, maybe whatever it was at the time. But I left with like $100 in my pocket from doing tricks for these people. Oh yeah. And that's what I ended up doing for a little while there. And I found out quickly that if you do those tricks with his money involved, if you get the money out first, it's easier for them to give it to you. So I came up with routines like I was doing cups and balls. It was a beginner still, but stuff I just learned. And so I started doing cups and balls with 3 borrowed dollar bills. And my final load at the end was $3 bills rolled up in a huge piece of flash paper. So at the end, the 1 cup, the white ball, I light it on fire. The $3 bills roll out.
Right.
You try and give them back to them, and they say keep it because they don't want to unroll their bill, and it was great. And so move up to 5s, get the money out, and do something cool with it, and it's easier for them to say keep it.
Yeah. Who's got a 5, 10, 20?
Right. Okay, so this is it's a kind of a long story. I'm getting back to the Motley Crue thing and all that. But so like a month or two after learning my first trick in life, I moved back home to Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and I went into the local bar I used to hang out at there. Like I said, I'm about 25 now, and I've only been gone, a little while. And what have you been up to? And I'm like, oh, just this, and floated the dollar bill at the bar. I think I was doing floating cigarette at the time, but, on an ITR. And, whoa. And I started doing the tricks that I learned, and people were just blown away. They didn't see me in only, less than a year, 6 months or something. I was gone. I come back, and I'm doing all these crazy tricks, and right away, the owner ended up getting me a walk-around job there. Gave me $50 for 2 hours a night, but I was killing it in tips. And it was, I grew up, lower middle class and whatever, just the way I lived my life. Being a rocker, you were always broke. This is the first time in my life I had to open a bank account because I was making money, working every night, and it was just the coolest thing for me. And a comedy club opened up down the road. I'll get into that in a bit too. But as this time, I'm doing the bartending and stuff, walking around at the bar. One day, somebody called in sick as a bartender, and the owner had to fill in, and he was not happy about it. And it was a slow night. He was sitting at the end of the bar, and there was people at the bar that wanted to see me do close-ups. So I asked him, hey, can I go behind the bar? It's easier to work across the bar than make them turn around and stand behind. Yeah, sure. So I'm back there just doing tricks for these people, and at the same time, a guy walked in and said, hey, can I get a Bud bottle? And the owner was like, hey, open that cooler, get him and it clicked, and he said, whoa, he can stand behind there, do tricks, and open beers. So I ended up becoming a bartender, and I bartended magic there for them. The money just went up from there.
Wow.
But around this time, too, I got my first computer, and, emails came out, the internet was, there now, and I was searching, of course, my favorite band, Motley Crue, for one of the first things I looked up on the internet when I got my first computer, and at the bottom of it, I find Nikki Sixx's email is there. And Tommy Lee, the drummer from Motley Crue. Mm-hmm. So I emailed them both, and I'm like, look, I'm just a longtime fan. You guys have helped guide through my life and this and that. And I told them my story, And the very next day, Tommy Lee, but they both responded. But Nikki Sixx was just like, wow, because I told him a lot more about my life than I did Tommy. But Tommy was just like, oh, cool, dude. And I'm like, hey, look, at the time I did my whole, doing my stage show, it was just to Motley Crue's album, Shout the Devil, front to back. I didn't talk at all. I just cranked the music and did my show. And I asked him, like, look, I'm not a stalker. Is there a P.O. box or an address I can send? I've been watching you all these years. Can I send you a VHS tape of my show?
Yeah.
He gave me his P.O. box. I sent it to him, and first I wrote back, I'm like, if this is somebody pretending to be Tommy Lee, I'm going to hunt you down and kill you, because I just couldn't believe I was talking to my idols.
The real guy,
emails
yeah,
brand new
yeah.
was like the first email I ever sent, and he wrote back right away. I'm like, if this is somebody pretending to be you, and he gave me the list of the new album coming out and everything.
Well, things have changed so much, and probably back then, the same thing with some celebrities. That was new for them, too. It's like, hey, here's a new way of contacting fans.
Hey, look, this fan from across the country that I never...
But now, of course, no way.
But it's still, the world's so much smaller because of it.
Yeah.
And so I sent him my videotape, and like a week later, I got an email back from him, and he said, hey, me and Pam Anderson, he was married to at the time, Pam Anderson, we're on the couch having breakfast this morning, and I popped in your VHS tape of You Rock. And I was like, oh my God, just Pam Anderson and Tommy Lee were having breakfast watching me on their TV.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it.
How cool is that?
And I thought my show was great then. I'd only been Magic a couple of years then, so I'm sure it wasn't great. But,
were you doing Doves then?
But they, I had a couple, as soon as I got into stage, Doves was one of the first things. But so then when they came to Boston next on their new tour, they invited me front row backstage.
Oh, gosh.
And with me and 6 of my friends. And
Backstage pass.
I got to go backstage and do magic for my idols. And so I wanted to do the cigarette trick for Nikki Sixx because he's my idol. But after the show, he was wearing one of those orange jailhouse jumpsuits with the zipper on it.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't like do the hand up the shirt to do the cigarette trick.
Oh, yeah.
So I was nervous, so I just unzipped his jailhouse jumpsuit like down a little too far. He wasn't wearing underwear at the time, so I brought it back up a little bit, but reached in and did it there, and that was great. But I brought my yearbook from 1988, where I wrote in my yearbook to meet and party with Motley Crue, and I had them all sign it. And so learning my trick in 94, 95, my first trick, and now this is like 97. Something like that, and so I had him all sign my yearbook. He did it with this, and then 1998, I get hired. Well, not hired. I volunteer to perform at my 10-year high school reunion.
Yep.
So I go back to all the people I went to high school with, and at this time I'm sponsored by Budweiser. We'll get into that too. But so I'm doing my show, playing Motley Crue, big sign. But Budweiser presents the magic of Michael Trixx, this and that. Do my show for all my high school classmates, and end my show with who else did what they wrote for their ambition in life in their yearbook. I held up my book signed by Motley Crue, threw it down, waved at everybody, and walked out of the room.
Mic drop.
And I just walked out to the parking lot for a couple minutes, took a breath. I was just, adrenaline was killing me. Walked back in, standing ovation, signed pictures from my classmates, and just a great story. That you can meet your idols. As we know now, this many years later, the internet's made the world a much smaller place. And don't be afraid to write to people you look up to, because chances are that they may write back, or you can reach them now easily.
Wow. That's
long-winded, but
phenomenal story. Yeah, about all that. And so, were you known as Trixx then, or were you still Stevens? I guess Michael Stevens. You said.
Yeah, playing in the music thing, that name never really got out because I never did much stuff. I had some fun in the '80s playing in bands. Just in the '80s, you just looked cool and then had fun. I was never very good at it, but so never got like even a tape out, a recording out or anything. But did some gigs and had some fun. And no, by the time I had sent them the emails, I was Michael Trixx. So after writing to Nikki Sixx, and at the end I signed Michael Trixx, and parentheses, I told you I was a fan. Like obviously he knew where I got it from.
Yeah.
I mean, my first tattoo was Nikki Sixx's first tattoo. That was like he was been my idol, and so very inspiring.
Well, you said you were doing Doves from the beginning then also. I did Doves many years ago then also, and I know you still do Dove productions and everything. Are there any new variations of Dove productions that you kind of feel like you have created?
The only one that I've changed the way I do my Dove split is a different technique than most people do, and it works for me, and a lot of people tell me how clean it is.
Because you have a vest. You're not wearing traditional magician's attire with a tux or tails.
Yeah, I'm not wearing tux, tails, and no sleeves ever. So it's just kind of it's a little longer jacket, waistcoat, I guess, but with no sleeves. And so they're all just body loads like everyone else. But things I've learned over the years of doing it. Probably the only thing that is different is my vape smoke dove thing. To take a big, a vape, it's non-nicotine vape thing, and just blow a big cloud and pull the dove out of that.
Oh,
and I have seen, I think a guy in China had done it as well. So, independently thought of, it wasn't just me doing it, but I think my technique's different than his. But same idea, just came out when vape came out. A big white cloud. You can blow big, thick white clouds with those. Some of those things, you crank up the battery power on it, and you get a nice thick cloud that sits there, and just boom. And as soon as the dove comes out and flutters, the smoke clears, obviously.
Yeah.
It just looks amazing.
So when you're working outdoors in particular and you're doing doves, I assume you're doing doves there at Lorelei.
Always. There's always 10 birds in my show, and outside's,
How many have you had fly away?
I've had a couple over the years fly away. I've always got them back. I've had to climb some palm trees, and which is not easy if you've tried that.
You actually climbed, or did you actually get some crane to take you up, or ladder?
Not a crane, but ladder standing on whether I have to stand on the rail of this or get stuff to pile up and get up there. Twice I've thought I've lost the dove, and because I searched for it. One night was a really, really windy night, and by the way, I've been doing 6 nights a week out there for 22 years, so 1 or 2 doves wouldn't be bad, but I've always got them back. But I thought I've lost them because one night was a particularly windy night, and a dove got away from me. And I don't do, obviously I said no sleeves, I don't do the sleeve tosses like you see magicians do, where they produce the dove, it flies around the audience, comes back to them. But I train my birds for that. Just in case they get away from me, they'll swing back around and come back to me. So I train them for that. And come on. There's a little call for them when I'm feeding and training them. And this one bird just got a little away from me one night, and I'm like, come on. And he tried to turn around. The wind just took it. And the more he turned towards me with the wind at my back, it's now in his face. It raised him higher and higher and higher and further and further and further away. And I was just watching it go and go and go, and he was struggling trying to get back to me. And I spent hours and hours and hours after my show, went across the street, walking up and down the beaches and the back roads, and come on, looking for my bird, and had to eventually give up on it. And I went back the next morning. It's happened once before in the past. I just go back in the morning before the sun comes up, because that's when they'll come to the ground to feed. So I go out there and just listen for the cooing maybe, or do my call, come on, and I've always got them back. So this one, I went back there, and still nothing. Come on, couldn't find this bird. And being white doves, home-raised pets, friends of mine, they don't camouflage well in the dark mangroves of the Florida Keys.
Yeah.
And once the sun's out, that's when the hawks come out to hunt, and they stand out like a sore. So I just assumed it was gone. I looked in the morning for hours, again another 3 hours out there, nothing. So I drove from Lorelei and Islamorada up to Key Largo to do some errands, and I got a phone call from somebody at this trailer park that's right next door to Lorelei, where I've been parking my car for however many years it was at this time, 15 or something. And I said, I think one of your birds is out here. I flew back, drove, back down there, and right where I've been parking my car for 15 years, my bird was out there hopping around, like looking for my car.
Very, very
and they're not homing pigeons. They don't know where they're going. He had just been there so many times. He knew somehow to get back there. I saw him go way far that way, and he somehow got all the way. And they're, like I said, they're not homing pigeons. They don't know to fly back to wedding releases. They do.
Yeah.
He just found his way back there because he had been there so many times and knew that's where I was.
Wow.
And luckily enough, that late in the day, it was like 3:00 in the afternoon, that a hawk hadn't found him yet.
So I assume the people who had called you there, you had parked near them long enough, and they were friends of yours and had your contact
They've
info.
lived there, and I park there every day when I go to my show. Same spot I've had for as long as I've been there. And
wow, so you got the doves back.
And they know I do the doves. They're like, I think one of your doves is out here.
I know doves live for a long time. I spoke with Alex Boyce at the Magi Fest about that, and he was telling me the names of his doves and how old each of them were. And I know everyone who is really a serious dove worker, and I say serious because I did doves, but not seriously, didn't keep them too long, and I gave them to other magicians after I got out of that, because it is a commitment, certainly, because if it's like any other pet of an animal, if you have a dog or a cat, you don't want to leave it, which I understand, by the way, that Las Vegas has one of the worst feral cat problems, because people move to Vegas thinking, hey, I'm going to be a gambler or I'm going to make it as a showgirl or whatever. And they rent an apartment, they get a cat, and then before long they're not making money. They move back home and they just let the cats
And the cats
go.
ended up at Gary Darwin's house, and Lansford ended up getting rid of
You've
all
been
of
there,
them.
yeah.
So
That's what I want.
My oldest dove in my show is 22 years old. I got him just before I came to the Keys. So he's 22, and he's still doing the show. And I've heard, like back in the day, Johnny Thompson say, some of his are, 18 to 23, or I think one of the oldest ones he said was 26 or something. But the partner, female of the male that I'm still using, I've had for 22 years, passed away maybe 5 years ago. Just, I don't know, egg bound. It was in the nest, so they get egg bound, or just old age for certain ones. And
egg bound means like they have an egg and they can't pop it out?
Yeah, it gets stuck in them, and they it's dying at giving birth. It happens to mothers, human mothers as well.
Yeah.
Or if the egg, that's if after a while if your dove's going to lay an egg, you don't want to use it in the show, because if anything happens where the egg breaks inside the mother bird, they'll also pass away from that. Gets in their bloodstream, whatever.
Had that happened to me once. They didn't die, but actually that I produced the dove and put it on the perch. It kept flying back to the ground, and I kept picking it up and putting it back. I mean, it happened 2 or 3 times during the show, and then I had a flip over vanish. And whenever I vanished it, it was gone. Then I was unloading it afterwards, and there was an egg in the thing. It's like, oh, that's what you were trying to do.
I've had it happen back when I used to do the fire bag. It's like the change bag. You put lighter fluid on one side, the bird's down low behind the fire gimmick, and the other side. So you let it on fire, close the bag with your hands, rip it open, the bird pops up, and you catch it on your finger. Yeah. So I've been doing it forever. At the time, I don't do it anymore, anyways, because only that one bird was good at it. So I rip it open, the bird comes up, lands, and at the same time, I lay the egg in the bag. So I catch the bird and splat at my feet with this little egg.
How funny is that?
It happens. I've heard Lance Burton tell stories to you, produce it, and the egg comes out, lands on the table in front of you or drops. But usually you can tell with the females if they're about to. But this was, of course, before I knew more about.
But that's going to be a funny bit, actually, as far as popping that open to have the egg, come out.
Well, it's something like what we all kind of do. They do with the ball drop, whatever. You palm an egg, produce the bird, and you look up and go, and you drop the egg in your hand.
Yes.
That's the opening of my show.
Right. Then
the callback with my Eggman routine later and stuff. But yeah, something like that. It's like the one time the bird really pooped on Johnny Thompson. That became a bit in his gig that he made happen all the time by squeezing. That's
what I'm saying. Sometimes you do find things that are funny.
Stuff happens. They laugh.
People laugh.
Keep it.
It's like,
man.
That's gold, man.
Yep, absolutely. A lot of lines with it. Comedians or comic magicians do is something a heckler yelled out, and they go, "Wow, if I said that, it'd be even funnier." You turn it around. That's why people, even if you're a video and audio, a visual magician, you might want to audio record your show anyway, just to go, hey, what was that happened, or what did he say? And you listen to it on the ride home from the gig and write it down and keep it, and that could build your show just on that. Things that, even if you said it, that you never scripted or off script, man, I
said something funny there that I need to remember to do that again.
Or if somebody does heckle you and you got nothing for the comeback, but the ride home, you're like, damn, I should have said, but write that down, because they're going to say it again at some point, and you'll be ready for it.
I was watching someone's show recently in which they said, and I knew it was Lance Burton's show when I was at Cullen, Michigan, and somebody yelled in the audience, said, hey, how'd you do that? And he said, if I told you, I'd have to kill you. Of course, just standard line.
Tell my wife
in
the back. Yeah. That was always in Lance's show in Vegas too. But I'm sure originally it happened because somebody said that. If I tell you, I'd have to kill you. Tell my wife. It's great. It's an amazing line. Yeah.
Maybe it's because it's a new one. It's one of those lines that might go, somebody will be eventually using kind of like, let me use your clean hand. No, that was a clean hand. The other hand.
Yeah. Right. Hopefully, too many people won't steal that one from here. And it was in Lance's show for a long time. Yeah. But it's a great one. Yeah. And of course, you got to have somebody in the back to yell that for you. But
you mentioned also just a second ago, and glossed over about Budweiser sponsoring you. When you market, do you go out and try and find sponsors for your shows?
Again, it's another thing I just lucked out at, man. I was back home on Cape Cod, and I was doing close up at the bar, and I think I got into the bartending already, and a comedy club opened up the street. And this is just like a year and a half into magic. I moved right back home and started doing the close up, and the bartending came along, and so I'm just doing close up here at this point. And a comedy club opened up like 2 miles down the road from where I lived and the bar I was working at. A guy named Dave Riley from Connecticut opened it. was called Looney Tunes Comedy Club, spelled different than the comics, but they still tried to sue him, so it changed to Riley's Comedy Club years later. But when it first opened,
like even if you use McDonald's and you spell McDonald's differently, it's too close. So they probably come after you.
Yeah, definitely. It's like if you can say it in audio dictation and it comes out, I don't care how you spell it, you can't use it.
Right.
you
right.
know?
Which goes back to was that Lost in America, or what was that Eddie Murphy movie? I think.
Yeah, they called it. It was called Coming to America.
Coming to America,
yeah. McDowell's.
What
was the name of it? Yeah,
too close.
Yeah, right. And they have golden arches. They have golden whatever. They could call it something else, like golden bridges or whatever it was. But yeah, so the comedy club opens up, and I'm excited about it. And I just go there. I just never went to comedy clubs either. So go to comedy club and check out. The first night comedians was funny. Went back the next week and. I'm hanging out early. We got there early. There was a bar open early, and I just started doing a couple close-up tricks. People recognized me because I work at the bar down the street, so locals are there doing tricks and whatever. And the owner, Dave Riley at the time, was also the MC and comedian that opened the show, and he would come out and like, who's that Slash-looking guy that out there? And he'd like throw me out of his bar for whatever. I'd come back and. One night the show was running late. I was in there, and he comes out. He's like, "Dude, look, I'll give you, an all-night bar tab if you walk around and start doing tricks for these people when my act's late." And so now instead of kicking me out, he needs me to help him. I used to just before the show, I'd jump up on chairs and float the cigarette, and just to get attention. I was when you first start in magic, you get balls, man. Like you think you're the greatest thing in the world. Like it's hard for me to approach a table now, even if I was doing a walk around. It changes over time, I guess, but. So I did that, got a free bar tab, and it was a magician working that night, actually. And again, at this point, I'd never seen a stage magician. I was just a close-up guy at the time, doing a walk around in bars. And the guy's name is John Lombardi. He goes by Gemini from New Jersey. And he does magic, comedy, ventriloquism. And I sat and watched the show, and I was just blown away. He came out with white mask on and white gloves with the gloves on fire. The whole fire hand thing, what people doing. Put the gloves out, dove comes out of it. What is this? I was, whoa. And then, it was bottle production, champagne, and then he went into his comedy and ventriloquism and fire pan at the end with a bunny, and I was just, I hadn't seen it, man. I was doing card tricks and cigarettes. I thought I was top of my game.
Right.
What is this? So I talked to him afterwards, and I'm like, dude, that's like the coolest thing I ever seen. And he's like, well, I'm here all weekend. Why don't you come back tomorrow night and get up on stage? I'll give you some time. And I'm like, well, I don't do stage stuff. Yeah. He said, go home and learn something. I'll see you tomorrow.
Wow. Okay.
What? I went home and I was just up all night. I had a couple books, videos I had bought from Ed's Magic Shop in Bradenton, Florida, and was trying to find something I could do. And I had a videotape of John Cornelius's dollar bill switch in the comedy club.
Yeah.
When he would like borrow a bill, burn it. I think he's rolling a joint. Here, take this out in the parking lot. So trust me, it'll be worth the $5.
That was a good routine. I remember that one.
It was great.
Yeah.
So but I think that I didn't even do that the next. No, I guess I did do that the next night, and something else. I forget what the other routine was.
But basically, they were close up for stage.
Yeah, but kind of parlor. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It didn't have. I found something that I could stand up in a kind of parlor style. Mm-hmm. So I went back there, and halfway through his show, the guy Gemini is like, "Man, I travel around a lot, doing this everywhere, and I love meeting local guys. I met one of your locals last night, and I'm going to get him up here to do a little something for you." My palms started leaking. My pits were like soaking my pants. I was just sweating bad. And I got up there and talked my way through the couple tricks I did. And all right, thank you, good night. And I walked off the stage, and he came back up there, and people were screaming in the crowd. And what's the matter? I forgot to give the guy back his $100 bill at the end of that routine. I borrowed his $100 bill, burnt it, and then went into my other tricks and was going to end with giving that back. And thank you, good night. And I walked, so I had to come back out and just do the quick thing, give the guy his $100. And I was just so nervous, and I'd never even talked on a mic before in my life. Even when I played in bands, I hated singing. I remember back when I was a kid, the babysitter got the first little tape recorder and, push play and record with a tape in there. And, hey, my name is Michael. And you play it back. Hey, my name is Michael. That's what I sound like. I'm never talking again. Yeah. I just hated the sound of my own voice.
We all do.
It was horrible. Well, so I was nervous about that too. And he said to me that night, he said, look, do this. Go home. Find out some other tricks to do. Pick a couple of your favorite songs. Come back and just do it to music. Mm-hmm. So he got me up again the next night, where I figured I can't even remember what I did at the time, but I did some stuff just to music where I didn't have to talk.
You weren't doing linking rings or anything.
Yeah, I've never touched a linking ring in my life, but and just
I'm sorry.
I've seen some good routines. Yeah, you hit a sore spot there, Scott.
I guess I did. I could feel it.
But. So whatever I did that night, I just picked a couple of my favorite rock tunes and went out there, and I was at ease. I got to do my rock moves from when I was in rock bands, and I didn't have to build a persona like magicians do. I didn't have to build a character. I was all of a sudden me up there rocking out. But, and I'm a total white guy. I can't dance at all either. But if I have something in my hands, like when I had my bass guitar in my hand, I could rock out on stage. I got those moves.
Yeah, right.
Now, Magic, I had stuff in my hands, and I was doing, and my favorite songs were playing in the background, and like right away, I just started rocking it. Like I was comfortable,
You're in the zone.
Yeah. Quickly. And so Gemini got me on stage the first time. And after that, the owner of the club, who was also the comedian, Dave Riley, invited me to become the opening act. So I started building my stage. And I got to leave my stuff there every night. It was 2 miles down the road. I got to stay set up, just work on new stuff every day. I'd practice there all day and do the show that night with him. We became partners, where he would do his show, I would do my show. At the end, we'd come out and do something together. We ended up doing that for a long time, called Just Illusions, where he was just played the dumb guy and I played the cool rocker guy. Every trick I did, he tried to do and screwed it up. And we had a great thing together with that. A year later, Gemini came back and seeing the progress I made in 1 year, and stole me away from the club, took me on tour with him to be his opening act. He's like, and he did all the Comedy Zones tours, the Comedy House Theater tours.
Wow.
And brought me on the road with him. So now he had a guy working for whatever, $250 a week, drive him everywhere and be his opening act. So it was easy for him to do. But I got the experience from it. And after only a couple months opening for Gemini, not opening for him, because, I did open for him first. And then he was like, I don't know if that's the right thing. So, because the reaction I was getting wasn't easy for him to follow at
it was
the time.
better. You were getting more reaction than he was, kind of.
Yeah, so
you should have been the closer, and he should have been the opener.
Yeah, even though he had the more time and experience with the comedy and the ventriloquism. So he had this idea. At the time, I was still, green to everything. And he's like, how about we do this? It's not kind of working out that way. I'll do my show, and then, I'll introduce you as, this guy I met on the street. I ended up becoming his last trick. I became his finale. Look what I found.
Okay.
But again, it was just an experience for me, and it was him doing it, bringing me there. And eventually, we put an act together too. We ended up having a magic battle at the end. He's all fancy Brooklyn guy, and I'm this rocker guy. So we would come out together at the end, and I would do a trick, say this bottle production. Okay, the 3 silks. You're going to produce a Budweiser bottle or whatever. So I get out the 3 silks and. Mine were bandanas, of course, rock and roll. And so I get out the 3 bandanas, and, I'm shaking around. He's got his 3 silks over there. He's dressed to the nines, and I'm in the, pleather pants, major Aussie makeup, and, rocking out. So I play, whatever, say a Kiss song or whatever. And I think AC/DC at the time, just have a drink on me. So I start, just waving the first green bandana in the air, and he's behind me, faking it, and overly waving, just making fun of me. But and then so I go through my things, and I produce the Budweiser bottle, and I turn it over to him, and a Sinatra song comes on, and he's a dancer, and so he goes into his whole dancing and produces a bottle of scotch. He beats me. If I did the bottle of Bud, he does scotch. All right. So then I would do Airborne, float the glass. My next rock song would come on, and I'd step up and do the Airborne, floating, beer in the glass thing, and he would top that, and we would go back and forth with the music and the tricks we were doing. Rap battles came later. We were doing a magic battle way back then.
That would have been in the 90s?
And yeah. So, this is...
late
yeah,
90s.
so 98, and like still early in my career, and 99, and we had two different endings to it. We got a little crazy with it for a while there. Like that's later on, the song came out. I was gonna clean my room until I got high. I was gonna do my like.
Then I got high. I remember
Yeah,
that
yeah.
song,
It was like a pot song.
Yeah.
And I would produce. I think I was rolling a joint, and I would light it, of course, flash paper. But then I would produce a bag of oregano. So instead of rolling a joint, I get a bag of weed. And then the song "Cocaine" comes on, and he steps up, and the crowd goes wild. And like we got a little crazy with it for a while. But we always had an ending, like different endings to whichever the crowd way was going. With that one would win, and it turned out that I would just always end up ending the thing, produce, and then he would get like a big blow up Kahlua bottle they use for promotions at liquor stores, and just run over and grab that and pull it up. We laugh, high five each other, and end the show together. So we became a team as well. And
but when you were using this as a bottle production, you were producing bottles of Bud, and Budweiser saw you or something. As far as
as far as that was back when I was still at the club, the comedy club with Dave Riley. And I was in there during the day once practicing my straitjacket escape on the stage, just during the day, doing a straitjacket escape. And the Bud rep came in to take their order for the week and saw me up there. What is that? I'm up on stage with my hair flinging around, swinging, trying to get out of the straitjacket.
That would be strange.
Yeah, and he was like, what the? Oh, yeah. They've got to kick this guy out last night or something. Yeah. But he saw it and asked what was going on. And Dave Riley, the owner, was saying, well, yeah, here's a couple. Come back to the show tonight and see what's up. So, and he did. He came back to the show that night, and he's like, "Look, man, I do the Bud promotions around town, and we'd love to have you." So he had to talk to headquarters. At that time, I think it was in Medford, Mass. Oh no, it was. I can't think of the name of it. I'll get it in a second. There's a closer one to Cape Cod. And then I started doing promotions for them on the Cape. Like, it just, you go to, they're doing a Bud promotion at a local bar. I would go around, do tricks for people, and give out pins and buttons or whatever at the time, and they give away beers. And, just it was part of their promotion thing. And I'll never forget my first Budweiser promotion. The guy that hired me brings me there. He's like, all right, here's, a pocket full of stuff to give away, and just tell them we're having this thing over here. After they see you, give them the pin button, they come over here. All right, cool. So I start doing my close-up at the first group of people, and the rep comes up behind me, and I'm in the middle of, like, say, SpongeBob. So 1, 2, 3, 4. He's like, hey, you want a drink? I'm like, yeah, I'll take a Coors Light. But he grabbed my shoulder and spun me around. He's like, do you forget where you are right now? Budweiser promotion. I drank Coors Light at the time. So not a great start.
No.
But yeah,
That is funny.
I quickly switched to Bud Light. But I did that, and then they started bringing me to Boston for that was the Medford place up there, and I did 2 shows a night for back to school college things every Tuesday and Wednesday. 2 shows Tuesday, 2 shows Wednesday, and I was at the Comedy Club Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So I would go up to Boston. They would drive me around in the Budweiser van, do the show, pack up all my stuff, go to the next show, and doing back to school college stuff. And it was awesome. I got to give away a keg of beer for a year, like for the college, and just. So some of the times colleges are rough, but I'd jump off stage, like fight my way out of the bar, jump in the van, go to the next gig, and fight. But sometimes it was rough.
3 a night or something? You kind of
it was 2 shows every Tuesday night, 2 shows every Wednesday night, midweek stuff, and then I'll go back to the Cape and do the Comedy Club Thursday, 2 shows Friday, 2 shows Saturday. So I was doing
gigging.
Yeah, I mean, and I had a kind of separate set of stuff that I would take to the Budweiser stuff. Just set up quick and get to the next gig. And all my regular stuff was set up at the Comedy Club. And now I'm making all this money. I'm still on, the days I can, doing the bartending close up there. And started paying my cousin to just go to the Comedy Club, set up my stuff. So all I had to do was walk in, do my show, and leave, and he would reset it for the next day. And
wow.
Like these days, I'm busting my ass in the Keys, sweating balls in 100-degree weather, and it takes me 2.5 hours to set up, 45-minute show, 2 hours to break down. And it's a 7-8 hour gig for me every day, just doing my little show in the Keys.
To get there and back
now,
as well. Yeah,
and I guess we'll get to that soon too, how I ended up where I'm at in the Keys, but. I know it's long-winded, but I've been dying a long time to tell these stories to you. And the people,
yeah. Glad we got that time. Well, that was what I was going to further ask about that, as far as trying to find a place. I mean, I love talking with people to find out why they are or rather how they got to where they are. And many times it is fortuitous. They happen to be at the right place at the right time, or they happen to be showing somebody something and someone else happened to see it, or it's kind of like some of the stories you've been telling. But others who have a goal in mind, saying, I want to ultimately do this. And when you do have that goal, you're going to reach it, just as you were talking about, meeting the rock guy stars that you were wanting to. You go for what you want to do. I mean, what are they going to say but no? But at least you have something that you want to try.
The answer is always no if you don't ask, right?
That's always, that's right. You always miss the shots you don't take.
Yeah.
So it's and that's what I was going to say as far as you were in Cape Cod, which was a great, beautiful place up northeast, to go all the way down to the Keys. So why did you make that transition all the way down there?
Okay, so the Riley's Comedy Club ended up closing around, I guess, the same time. This is all like a flash in the pan. It was a couple of years. I started in 94, I guess, and then the Comedy Club was 96, 97, the Budweiser thing, and 98 it kind of wrapped up, and I still did another tour with Gemini. But I had friends, a good friend from Cape Cod living in Cape Coral, Florida, which is the west coast of Florida. And I was wrapping up a gig from a little Gemini trip I was doing, and it was at Boca Nuts Comedy Club in Boca Raton, Florida. And I remember Bill Malone came to see my show there. It's the first time I met him because he still had his thing in Boca. Mm-hmm. And I kind of forget what happened. Gemini was driving to another gig, and I left my stuff at the comedy club there, and I flew home to Cape Cod for something, and I was flying back to the comedy club to pick up my stuff. Even my birds were there. I had someone care for my bird. All my stuff was there. But my buddy that lived on the other coast of Florida, this is on the East Coast, and they lived on the West Coast, I was going to stay with them. So they drove across the state, picked me up with all my stuff. I drove back there, and I lived with them in Cape Coral for a while. I was doing shows down at Fort Myers Beach and just with local bands and getting some gigs. And me and the buddy that I went to live there with had a fellow bartender friend of ours from Cape Cod that came to the Keys every year, and he bartended at this place called the Lorelei.
Yeah, okay.
So we drive down from Cape Coral to Islamorada, and we pull into the Lorelei, and there's a payphone there still. This is 1998. I get on the payphone and go, I think we're here. I look, he yells from the answers the phone, I think we're here. Hey, he yells at the bar, flags us over. We hang up the phone and walk over there. We're there. Yeah. And I brought my stuff in case there was a chance to do a show. So I had a little of my things and my birds with me and stuff because I wasn't going to leave them alone in Cape Coral.
Sure.
So we have a drink, and the GM at the time, a guy named John Malogany, comes up to the bar, and my bartender friend says, hey, John, this guy's a great magician. You should give him a couple minutes on stage and see what he does.
Right. At that point, they only had bands, I assume. They didn't have any other magicians or anything like that. No variety.
They've never been. The only magic has been in Key West, 90 miles away. Frank Everhart. Nothing ever like this ever happened in Islamorada. But there was actually, but I can't say that because there was a guy that had a mentalism show at the Green Turtle. I can't think of his name right this second. Henry Rosenthal was doing a mentalism show there for a long time. But so the GM looks at me and goes, see that band up there? I said, yeah, there's a little duo playing up there. And he says, I got 2 more songs. When they're done, you got 10 minutes. Don't go over. I threw my drink down, ran in my car, put my vest on, bunnies, birds, shoved everything, go, get ready. Yeah. I get up there, and the van stops, and I said to one guy, excuse me, your boss said that I could do 10 minutes on your break here. Could you play this tape for me? I think I had a cassette at the time, or probably CD. I think CD because they were using MP3s. The guy turned around to me, he's like, you're talking to the wrong guy. Talk to him. All right, go over to his partner. Hey, your boss said, I could. Yeah, sure. So the guy goes, puts in my CD and goes, all right, well, Case and Davidson, I'm going to take a quick break. I guess we got some magic show coming up. Here you go.
Nice introduction.
They were the.
How many people are in the audience?
This place was always mobbed. It always has been. Probably 200 people on the deck.
It wasn't
out
like
there.
Just 20 people or
yeah,
so.
No. This is packed. Okay. Packed place. So he just said, I guess we got some magic show coming up. We'll be back in 10 minutes. He hits play on my CD, and I do my 10 minutes. And killed it. killed it. Like like my whole 40 show in 10 minutes. Like I just birds, fire, everything.
Yeah.
Killed it. Walked off stage. The GM gave me $100, said come back whenever you want. I said, all right. And I went and I had a couple more gigs. I left town. The rest of the couple of days I was there, I did the shows with that band again every night I was there for the week. And they're like, we met this guy last night. He was amazing. Like my intro got much better every single night, you know? And so I went, finished. I think I had one more show with Gemini. I went and got my stuff, rest of my stuff in Cape Coral. I went home, grabbed my car, and moved to the Florida Keys. It was just a couple months later. And I was doing the rest of that tour with Gemini, and my buddy that was the bartender I went to see at Lorelei called me and said the trailer park he lived in at the time, there was a trailer that somebody had left abandoned, and they're going to just chainsaw it and take it out of here. If you want it, it's a free place for you. You just pay I think it was $249 a month for the lot rent.
Yeah.
I said, I'll take it. So I get down there a month later, or 2 months later, I'm paying the lot rent for this place I've never seen. I get there, and I get there late. I asked my buddy, where's the trailer, I've been paying for, and grabs a flashlight, brings me down there, and we walk in, and I kind of started crying. I was like, what? It was a little like fifth wheel trailer, like that you would put in, just hook in the back of a pickup truck, old Springer, I think it was called. And we walked in the little kitchenette area, the ceiling was like sagging down like a bladder. So I took a knife out of my pocket and I cut it open, and like 50 gallons of water and cockroaches and bugs, everything splashed down to the ceiling, fell on the floor. And I spent my first while in the Keys sleeping with like 9 pots and pans around me, catching rainwater and doing my little 10-minute spot.
Wow.
Down there every night. And
that's dedication.
And I would go jump the fence. I think people in the Keys are going to kill me now because I still shop at this place. Well, I used to go jump the fence at the lumber yard and throw pallets of wood over the barbed wire thing, climb back over, and fix up my trailer every night. And I ended up rebuilding it, making it livable after a while. And then eventually redid the whole thing when I started getting a little money and made it really nice. And I lived there for like 8-9 years. And then I moved up to another little apartment down the road. I had to step up, got a little apartment on the water on a canal, and lived there for a couple of years. And then things just started getting really good, and I met my wife, and now we have a nice 3-bedroom house on the water in Tavernier, in Harry Harris Park, and things have come a long way. But I just started with nothing there, and a lot of people ask me, we talk about how to get gigs, how you get where you're at. I lucked into that 10-minute spot there and was asked to come back, but that was only Casey Davidson, the band at the time I'm talking about, was there at the time Mondays, Fridays, and Saturdays. So I had those 3 days with them right away. And at the time I was getting $75 a night from the Lorelei, and I would do my tip hat. But I didn't talk at all at the time either. The band would say, by the way, he gets a little stipend from the bar, and he works for tips. If you'd like, come put something in this jar for him.
Yeah.
I still didn't talk at this time. I just hated my voice. I'm not talking. So they did everything. Introduced me, did my tip hat thing. I wouldn't even do my own tip hat spiel. Nothing. But at the time, I was just, all right, there's this new guy in town. You got to see him. He's crazy. This rock and roll guy at Lorelei. And so the locals started finding out who I was. And I would get asked to do, the Florida Keys always has something going on. It's an awesome community. If anybody gets in an accident or gets sick, everybody comes together, does a benefit, raises money.
Sure.
It's just how it is. They do a thing for there's a lot of cats down there too that are just out. They do casting for cats. You get money for them to catch them and get them spayed, so they're out there and not multiplying. And fish and things. There's just always a benefit going on. And it seems like so. I would do these benefits, everything I could, just free. Just you're having a thing, and then my name started getting out, and I got pegged as this guy that kills for free at any benefit there is. Yeah. And so everybody was calling me and like, do this thing. And I just kept doing it. My name kept getting free for nothing.
It's important what you said there. Then I hope everyone is listening to this, because you aren't just kind of throwing a free show and doing a little bit of nothing. You're actually still giving it your all, because people are seeing what you can deliver. It's like, we need to get this guy.
We're going to get to that when you ask for my magic word at the end. I always go, I'm a fan, listen to it. I'm always surprised when you have a magician on and you say, so my podcast is called The Magic Word. What's your philosophy? Blah, blah, blah. And they're like, caught off guard. I figured everyone's got to listen to this, but I'm ready for it. So we'll get to that.
We're almost there.
Yeah.
Almost there.
But then it got to the point where I was just so casted as this great act, and you'll never see me call it in. If I got it and I can do it, I'm doing it. You're 100% every time. So I'm just killing every one of these events.
Yeah.
And then eventually I got so popular and in demand that I started getting asked for money for it. I just didn't know at the time. It's a benefit fundraiser. It's got to be free. They can't pay. Then,
right.
Wait, what? They have a budget? They have money for this stuff? Like, I didn't know that for a couple of years. I was doing all these free shows and the bands that are there. I'm like, oh, it's nice of us to do this. And like, yeah. And start seeing them get their check afterwards. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
You get paid for this? I thought it was a benefit. Doesn't that mean benefit like what it's for and you do nothing? Oh, whatever. Or give nothing? I don't know.
Learn.
But then I started to just get to pick and choose the ones I wanted to do, and I picked up a couple other restaurants.
But you got good flight time.
Yeah, I got all the stage time, that I needed. I mean, I already had it every night at the Comedy Club in the Cape, and my show just got bigger and bigger and better always, because I was always out there working.
Yeah.
I didn't have to spend time alone practicing at home. I got paid to practice every single night, pretty much since the day I started magic. I'd work on something new at home and put it on stage that night. And my stuff, it was built on stage. Mm-hmm. My Eggman routine, I never once practiced it at home. I had the idea for it, and it built on stage. And if I try to practice it at home or think through it, I can't, because I get lost. I don't know where I'm at. And it's just a thing that happens for me on stage. And the timing's always the same on stage. But if I try and think through it, I confuse myself and I get lost. I can't do it. It was built on stage with a little buzz on, and that's how it has to be done.
Yeah.
I can't do it at home. And a lot of stuff, you have to rehearse at home, and I do it. It's got to be tight and this and that. But some things were just for me built on stage. And I think we're going back to, so once I get to pick and choose some of the benefits that I do, I start getting other restaurants, and now I've got 3 days at Lorelei, 1 day here, and 2 days there. I'm working 6 nights a week and still trying to do some of the, so now I get to pick and choose the benefits that I want to do, sure. and that who can pay if it's a day I have a gig that I'm going to do. All right, well, I'm going to lose this much money doing it, and so I know you got a budget, I'll do what I can for you, but I got to make at least this to cancel this, and my schedule's always been full because of that. So when you hear every magician in the world say, if you're a newbie listening to this, do what they say. Get out there, do as many shows as you can for free, even if it's a nursing home, preschools, get your flight time. And like I said, I was lucky enough to mostly get paid for my flight time, paid to practice, I called it. But can always get better. And
wow, that's great.
And this summer, I still do. I always do the breast cancer one for free. It's called Relay for Life. It's a 24-hour thing they do in the Keys at the school. People walk around the track at the school for money, to raise money for breast cancer. And that's one that I'll do my regular sunset show and do a midnight show there if I can, if it works out. Because who doesn't like breasts? I mean, that's one I always do.
Keep
and seriously, I think it's a great thing. So
yeah, my mom had passed from that also. So.
I think it's important.
It absolutely is.
And one thing that I've always done too from the Keys, when I did get that trailer in the Keys and get it going, I would do like 6 months down there, and I would go home to Cape Cod for 6 months, and I would still do some of the stuff. Cape Cod, I started a street performing thing there, and we did do the bar if I could, or gigs around. And so I always did 6 and 6. Then I kind of turned to 8 and 4. I was more in the Keys, and so still it's up to like 2005. So learning my first trick in 1994 up to 2005, I never knew there were ring meetings or magic conventions. All I ever did was went to Hank Lee's in Boston, and long story there. Would go to Hank Lee's in Boston, and guys like Steve Cradolfer would tell me all my stage stuff I was getting, and I'd go and do it, and I was studying for VHS tapes, and I found.
Did you ever work at the Mystery Lounge there?
I've done the Mystery Lounge since, a few times, and they're always great guys up there.
Yeah.
So I'm watching, I found this guy, Jeff McBride, that I ended up liking when I got into stage stuff. Cruise over that, right? This guy named Jeff McBride I found. And I see at the end of one of his videotapes that he has a school in Las Vegas. And it's got his email address on the bottom of it. And I'm home on Cape Cod doing some shows at the time at my mother's house. And I see that, and I send an email to the address at the bottom of this VHS tape, Jeff McBride, Magic, whatever. Hey, Jeff, I've been studying your tapes for a couple of years. I'm like a struggling kind of magician still, and I hope to be able to afford to come to your school one day and this and that. He writes back like an hour later, right away, writes back. You'll make it here one day, don't worry. Mm-hmm. That's in like, I don't know, maybe 2000, still just kind of getting going in the Keys and going back to the Cape. And in 2005, I finally saved enough money to go out to Vegas to his Magic and Mystery School. And it was the 7-day extended master class for stage magic, and I was so excited. Got out to Vegas, and class starts the next day at 10. So I get there at like 10:15, knock on the door. Jeff McBride answers the door. Again, it was like meeting God, your idol. He answers the door. I point at him. I go, "You're Jeff McBride." He points at me and goes, "You're an hour early. Class starts at 11." I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, man. Yeah. my time was screwed up for the flight or whatever." But he goes, "You can go out, hang out in the back." So I walked through his house and passed through the living room, and Eugene Berger's sitting there in a chair, just relaxing before stuff happens. And I'm like, "Oh my God, don't say anything stupid. It's Eugene Berger. Don't say anything stupid." And Eugene, I went out back and that was the best week of my whole life. I mean, that was the best move I ever made in my magic career, ever, was going to Jeff McBride's Magic and Mystery School. I spent a week there. Not only, I'll talk about the magic in a minute, but it also changed me as a person. If you all know, Jeff McBride's a little spiritual, and no, I didn't have to bang on drums when I was there or anything, but there is spiritual stuff there that just makes you a better person by spending time with Jeff McBride. I'll always say that, and I mean it. But the one thing Jeff McBride told me when I was there, because I was talking in the class and telling my story, I self-taught the past 10 years, sponsored by Budweiser, moved to Florida Keys, I got my own show there, this and that, and Jeff McBride was like, "You need to tell that story on stage." And I'm like, "Oh, I don't talk on stage." Mm-hmm. I'm like, the guy Gemini told me years ago, "Stop talking, just play music." Jeff McBride looked me in the face and said, "Tell that guy Gemini, Jeff McBride gave you permission to talk on stage. You need to start talking on stage and telling your story." Yeah. So I got back to the Keys and working on my show and got a microphone, started telling my story and doing my own tip hat, and my money tripled immediately.
Really?
Because everybody that would see me on stage, like, who is this crazy guy just going crazy up there? At the time, I got rid of the Motley Crue. I was just playing Aerosmith's greatest hits front to back and rocking out, and they never heard me talk. And then all of a sudden, I would stop after my first thing. Hey, look, I'm self-taught. Started on the streets, Cape Cod, doing shows, and found my way down here to the Keys. And much like when I was a street performer at the end, I still work for tips. And so I'm going to come around with my hat instead of them coming up. I'm coming around now. And just them going, "Hey, look, it's a real person." Because I'm talking, tell my story. He worked hard at this. He doesn't just get up there and crazy and do this crazy magic shit. He had to work at this.
It's just like America's Got Talent when they tell the backstories of these people, because you have more empathy and sympathy for some of these people. It's like, oh, they've had it pretty hard, or they're doing this or that.
That was my issue when I did America's Got Talent. Like, it was 2008. It was early. I wasn't quite ready yet, but they asked, my interview thing, "What do you do for a living?" "Oh, I get paid to do what I love every night." You're out of here. Yeah, I should have said, I sleep in dumpsters. I work the streets during the day because my nana's in the hospital. Exactly. You got to have that heart-tugging story, and I'd still fall for it. I watch it, American Time. You got to have that. It's part of the game, and I just didn't know it at the time. Yeah. But so yeah, at the same time, Jeff was like, conventions, and I'm like, "What conventions?" He's like, "Yeah, you're in Florida, right? Yeah, Daytona Magic. What?" I just 10 years in magic. I never knew those conventions, and
that's funny.
And so when I went back to Cape Cod, I found the ring they had there, the Cape Cod Mystics, and the one in Miami. And I went to Daytona. And my first time in Daytona was, my first magic class was 2005. So I went, I think 2007, competed at Daytona, got nothing. Went back in 2008, worked with Jeff McBride again. I think I went to another 3-day class. Went back in 2008, got second place to my buddy Jeffrey Allen, who's a comedian magician out of Orlando, and he's awesome. We met backstage, and he got first place. I got second place. I went back the next year, 2009 or 10, and I got first place, and Jeff got second place. And so we're working with Jeff McBride along all those things, building your acts. All right, what did you learn from losing this competition? Who won? Well, a guy that kind of did this. And, all right, well, now you know what they're looking for. And honed it, and won that competition. Then I went to Myrtle Beach, Magic at the Beach. I won that competition first place, and at the time, it seemed like whoever won that got hired to work the next year thing, and that didn't happen. The guy who got second place got hired to work the convention next year, and not me.
That's weird.
And it was only because he lived there and had Big Illusions, and it was easy for him to get there, which I understood.
Okay.
But I still didn't get hired again the next year, so all right, I'll show them. I went back again into the competition, first place again in the competition. All right, now can you? And then eventually I got hired there, and those were always great guys. That was a great convention. Again, that didn't last too long, but it was always a great convention. And that working their gala show, I think it was my first big gala show, and I got to work with Les Arnold and Lo Sander was in it, and I got a picture of the whole cast. Oh, Dave and Danya, obviously Dave passed away, so I got a great picture with all those guys. And then I started getting some other competitions under my belt, and eventually doing some conventions and lectures.
Get a little bit of notoriety among the magic community then, too.
And as you saw just a few years ago, to jump forward, Michael Finney helped me out a lot, gave me a big break, hired me for the gala show at the IBM in Grand Rapids, Michigan, which I killed, standing ovation, and I thank Michael for that. And people like Lance Burton commenting on my post about Trixx, you knocked it out of the park, and being a Dove guy, Lance Burton to post something like that. Yeah. That's something you screenshot and frame. And then, so I do that stuff when I get time, and other than that, my schedule is always full in the Keys, 6 nights a week for 22 years, pretty much I've been doing there.
Wow.
And, I got, we didn't talk about the Jimmy Carter thing, about that. I've done 2 shows for President Jimmy Carter because of my thing in the Keys. I go to Ring 45 in Miami, and I don't know how much I'm allowed to say about this, but one of the members at Ring 45, I don't know if we can do it, was a secret agent for Jimmy Carter. And when Jimmy Carter came to the Keys, he brought, stayed at a huge resort, private section of it for him, but he brought all his agents and their families. It's like 50 people he brings down, and they all stay there. And they were there for a week, and this guy had 5 magicians, one come in each day to do a show for President Jimmy Carter because he loves magic. And so when we bring a mentalist in, they all sit around the table in the living room of the place or whatever, and they do a show. And my day comes, and I'm like, all right, let's do it outside by the pool because I got a lot of confetti, and my show's a mess, the birds and everything.
Right.
So I set up by the pool. They bring everybody out, sit around, and I didn't change a thing, man. I just rocked it out, put on my music, and I just did my thing. I wasn't phased at all, but I don't know why. But President, it was kind of a big thing. Well, I just killed it. And President Jimmy Carter came up to me after the show and said this to me and gave me the permission to use the quote. He said, "Michael, I love magic, and I've seen shows all over the world. I've never enjoyed one as much as yours."
Wow, that's saying a lot.
Whoa, I get goosebumps and tears right now just talking about it. It's amazing. And 2 years later, he came back, or 3 years later, he came back to the same spot with the same group of people, and he was asked if they want magicians to come back, and he said, just that one guy. And I got to go to the show for him again. And just him and his family. His grandkids were a little older now. And,
just a smaller group of the family.
And he sent me, the first time, he sent me a letter from his office that thank you for the experience in the Keys. My family's still talking about it. It was a highlight of our vacation, including Disney, and man, pens from I got a Secret Service coin. It's got the Jimmy Carter, and it's got a peanut on the back because it's Peanut Farm, and people work their whole life to get the Secret Service coin.
Yeah, that's right.
And I have it, and his pen from his eye. He sent me a bunch of stuff and pictures, and I brought back pictures a second time from the first time of him and his wife, and I had them both sign it and picture them floating the table with me, and they posed for stuff afterwards, and it's amazing.
You're gonna have to send me a copy of some of those pictures, so that way I can put them
I
on
have
the blog
them,
as well.
I keep a couple on my phone just for that, and I will.
So that way that people can go
I have
to
the letter. I'll get that to you for sure.
See that then as well.
It's amazing.
Wow, Michael, that's tremendous. There's a lot to learn. I didn't have many questions to ask because it was just a wonderful ride. Holy moly. I hope everyone has enjoyed that as well.
I know I talk fast sometimes. I've been waiting so long to do this with you because I am a huge fan of the podcast. I listen to it on my walks and stuff. I listen to every single one of them. When I first got into it, I don't know, however long ago, I went through all the old. I've listened to every single one of them, and I'm a huge fan.
Well, Thank you very much. I appreciate that deeply. So you are already prepared. What is
Yeah.
your magic word?
My magic word. Years ago, I did just a guest spot on a thing with you. I forget what we were talking about. And you asked each of us, it was just a small question thing. It was like a group thing. I forget what it was, but I was in Wilmington, North Carolina at the time. I remember sitting at my buddy's kitchen table, and you asked what my magic word was, and I didn't expect you to be asking on that because it was just a quick thing of people calling in or getting online, whatever it was. And I said honesty is my magic word, and I mean that like be honest with people. I always hated liars, so that's obviously that's obvious. But be honest with yourself too. Look in the mirror, see who you are. Find out, if you have to find out your character, don't try to be something that you're not just on stage, off stage too. And at that time, I said to you, I could probably be a little further along in this magic world if I wanted to play that game of, maybe not, I don't want to say just people lie to get where they're at, but maybe playing that game of just kissing ass. And it's just not me. Sometimes I'm too honest, brutally honest, like, man, he shouldn't have said that to him. Well, he asked, But so there's different levels of being honest, but be honest with yourself too. And just don't cheat people and lie to them. It makes everything a mess. And be honest with yourself, be honest in the world. It's much easier. If you're a compulsive liar, or it eventually comes around and hurts you, and don't be fake. It's just it's all I've ever had. When I had nothing, sleeping in that trailer with pots and pans, rain, all I ever had was my word. Mm-hmm. And I always believed in that. But now it's be honest and have passion. So I kind of explained the honest thing. The have passion for what you do. I said earlier, you'll never ever see me phone it in. If you see me on stage, if it's in front of 3 kids behind a dumpster or a nursing home or a nursery school, and I do them all. People say, oh, your show's a certain market. It's not. I look rock and roll, and my show's crazy, but I've had 82-year-old people come up to me after the show and go, I've lived a long time. I'm an old lady, and I've seen lots of stuff, and you touched every one of my emotions in that show. You made me laugh. You made me cry. You made me inspired. And kids, well, Michael Trixx, they look up to me and like, some are, a little scared of me if they're too young, but eventually they come around. And I have kids that used to sit in my front row at Lorelei, bringing their kids to see me now because I'm part of their life. They show me pictures of them growing up and their kids growing up at my show.
Yeah.
I never phone it in. There's nothing I dislike more than when I go to a magic show and I see the guy phoning it in. You can tell he just hates his job and he's going through the motions because he's got bills to pay. He's got family. It's where he got stuck. I understand that. You got to make your money. But try to build yourself up a little bit just to make it look like you're having fun.
Make it fresh every show.
I've had 105-degree temperature. Well, that's almost dead. I think 106 is, and I feel like crap. But my music starts, everything in the world goes away from me, and it's 110% every single time for me. Every single time. Listen to that, people. Mm-hmm. I can't stand when I see somebody just, that's your card. Like, you can tell it's fake, man, and people feel that. Don't think you're fooling them. People aren't as stupid as people think they are. Mm-hmm. The audience knows that. And so if you're fake, they're going to know it and not respect you as much, and it shows. And they might clap because they're just being respectful or polite, or that's what it is. But when an audience means it at the end of your show, and I feel that every night because they know if I'm having fun, they're having fun.
Sure.
And it goes the same for not just being into what you're doing. If you're nervous, like I was in the beginning, they sense that too, and that makes them nervous. My first show, when I was nervous, they were nervous for me. How can they have fun when they're all tense and nervous for you? Like their palms are sweating too. Man, this poor bastard, this poor guy up there, So whatever you're giving across, they feel that, man. You're not fooling them. Your tricks might, but your attitude and your passion for what you're doing does not fool them. So if you have fun and mean it from your heart, they will have fun at your show. And it's a famous thing they say, if they like you, they're going to like what you're doing. Still have good tricks. Don't milk it either, but love what you're doing. So be honest and have passion.
Wow. Great words. Great advice. Again, I'm so glad we're friends.
Me too.
Thanks very much for everything you do. And I want to also, again, compliment you for being a great guest of bringing some vodka to our chat. Too.
Great. I'm glad we didn't do it too early because
I'm going to recommend other people whenever we have conversations that you might consider bringing a bottle to the party. So anyhow, thank you very much, Michael. This
hey, Scott, thank you, and all the friends to the Magic Word. Thank you guys for being part of it. So Scott can keep this going. I know I love it. I'm sure you do too.
I do it for you.
Hey, Chesaday. I had to throw that in there.
That's right. Love you, man. All right. So with the Magic Word Podcast, that was Michael Trixx. This is Scotty out. Thank you, Michael, for being my guest this week on the Magic Word Podcast, and thank you for sharing your story. There are millions of stories out there. Everyone has their own journey, and I appreciate you sharing yours. And perhaps some of the things that you have done and the events that you have gone through perhaps might serve as an inspiration to some of the listeners out there. So those of you who are listening, pay particular attention to what he has suggested. So this way you can learn from those successes and go out and forge your own path then as well. So again, this is just another one of the many stories that we like to bring you each week here on the Magic Word Podcast. And we appreciate you coming back and listening. We know there are dozens of magic podcasts out there, and we appreciate each and every one of you coming back each week, and also for suggesting to others that they should be listening to this podcast then as well. All you have to do is go to themagicwordpodcast.com and subscribe to our pod letter, so this way you know what's going to be coming up from week to week, plus some suggestions from the archives from previous episodes that you may have missed. And next week, just as a little preview, I will tell you, as I did up front, we're going to be having Murray Sawchuk return and talk a little bit about what's been happening in Las Vegas over this past year. And it's been another year under the pandemic, so there have been some people who have started up their shows, but perhaps it's been a slow start for some, and some jump right into it. And so we'll talk a little bit about that, among other things, which perhaps might be some of the tricks of the year. And again, hopefully we'll be hearing from you with your shout-outs. So please send me your audio file so this way I can include that in next week's episode. So until next week, stay well, get booked, and remember to be honest and have passion. This is Scotty out.